The enemy general was so confident of victory that he had already planned his celebration feast when Yoshitsune appeared on the battlefield. And what happened next defied every rule of warfare that had existed for centuries. Picture this scene from 12th century Japan. Two massive armies facing each other across a valley. The opposing commander surrounded by 1,000 experienced warriors, while Yoshitsune stood with barely 50 men. Yet something in the way he carried himself made seasoned soldiers feel a chill of uncertainty they couldn't explain. The enemy had superior numbers, better positioning, more resources, and every tactical advantage you could imagine. But what they didn't understand was that they were about to face something far more dangerous than any army. They were about to encounter a human being whose mind had become so perfectly still that it could see 3 moves ahead, while others were still trying to understand the current moment. What transpired in the following hours would become legend, not because of the violence or the spectacle, but because of the terrifying precision with which a silent mind dismantled an entire military strategy that had taken months to plan. Today, we uncover the devastating secret behind Yoshitsune's mental discipline and discover how the practice of inner stillness transforms ordinary people into forces of nature that obstacles simply cannot withstand. This isn't about meditation or spiritual platitudes. This is about developing a specific type of mental clarity that makes your enemies defeat themselves by revealing their weaknesses, while you remain invisible to their attempts to read your intentions. Before we dive deep into this life-altering wisdom, I need you to join this community because what we're exploring today separates those who control outcomes from those who merely react to them. Hit that like button if you've ever noticed that panic makes people stupid while calm makes people unstoppable. Subscribe because we're building a brotherhood of individuals who understand that true power is cultivated in silence. And comment below with the words, silent and deadly, because I want to know you're ready to develop the type of mental discipline that makes your success inevitable, while others are still figuring out what happened. Yoshitsune's discovery of the silent mind began not on any battlefield, but during his years of forced exile in a Buddhist monastery, where a young boy who had lost everything learned that the absence of internal noise could become the foundation for external dominance. Imagine being 10 years old and having your entire world destroyed overnight. Your father killed, your family scattered, your noble birthright stripped away, and being sent to live among silent monks who spoke only when absolutely necessary. Most children would have been consumed by rage, bitterness, or despair, but Yoshitsune found himself in an environment that would accidentally forge the most powerful weapon any warrior could possess. A mind so quiet that it could hear opportunity in the sound of falling leaves and detect deception in the space between heartbeats. The monks didn't intend to create a tactical genius. They simply imposed a discipline of silence that gradually eliminated the internal chatter that clouds judgment and slows reaction time. Hour after hour, day after day, year after year, young Yoshitsune learned to exist in a state of alert calm that most people never experience even once in their lifetime. And this training would later allow him to process complex battlefield information while his enemies were still struggling with the emotional overwhelm of combat stress. The first lesson Yoshitsune mastered was that noise in the mind creates noise in perception, meaning that people who cannot quiet their internal dialogue cannot accurately read their environment or the people within it. Think about the last time you were in a heated argument or a stressful situation. How much of your mental energy was consumed by your own thoughts, fears, and emotional reactions, rather than focused on actually understanding what was happening around you. Yoshitsune realized that most people live in a constant state of internal distraction that makes them vulnerable to anyone who can maintain clarity under pressure. And he began to see this mental noise as the primary weakness he could exploit in any opponent. The second crucial insight was that silence gives you access to information that others miss, because they're too busy broadcasting their own mental static to receive the subtle signals that reveal weakness, intention, and opportunity. When your mind becomes truly quiet, you begin to notice micro-expressions that betray hidden emotions. You hear the hesitation in voices that reveals uncertainty. You sense the energy shifts that indicate when someone is about to make a move. And most importantly, you develop an intuitive understanding of timing that allows you to strike at the exact moment when your opponent is most vulnerable. This isn't mysticism. This is practical psychology applied with surgical precision. And Yoshitsune proved its effectiveness by consistently defeating enemies who should have crushed him based on conventional military wisdom. But here's where Yoshitsune's teaching becomes immediately applicable to your modern life. Because the same mental discipline that made him invincible in combat will make you unstoppable in business, relationships, and any competitive situation you encounter. In professional settings, while others are reacting emotionally to pressure and stress, you'll be the one who sees the bigger picture and makes decisions from a place of clarity rather than fear. When colleagues are panicking about deadlines or office politics, your silent mind will identify the real priorities and the most efficient path to success. In negotiations, while your counterpart is broadcasting their desperation or overconfidence through their words and body language, you'll be reading their tells and adjusting your strategy in real time. In relationships, instead of getting caught up in the emotional drama that destroys most connections, you'll be able to respond rather than react, understanding what your partner actually needs rather than what they're saying they need. The silent mind sees patterns where others see chaos, finds opportunity where others see obstacles, and maintains strategic thinking when others are overwhelmed by tactical problems. Let me share with you the specific moment when Yoshitsune first understood the true power of mental silence, because this story will show you exactly how to apply these principles in your own life. He was 14 years old, still living in the monastery, when a group of bandits attacked the temple looking for treasure they believed the monks had hidden. The older monks remained perfectly calm, not because they weren't afraid, but because their years of mental training had taught them that panic clouds judgment and makes effective action impossible. Young Yoshitsune watched as these seemingly defenseless religious men completely outmaneuvered armed criminals through nothing but superior mental discipline and strategic thinking. The monks didn't fight the bandits. They didn't try to hide. Instead, they used psychological warfare that was so subtle and precise that the attackers began to doubt their own plan and eventually retreated without taking anything. What Yoshitsune witnessed that day was the practical application of mental silence as a weapon, not the passive meditation he had thought he was learning, but an active form of consciousness that could manipulate outcomes through pure clarity of thought. The monks had read the bandits' psychological state with perfect accuracy, identified their fears and insecurities, then used carefully chosen words and actions to amplify those weaknesses until the criminals defeated themselves. This became the foundation of Yoshitsune's entire approach to conflict. The understanding that most people carry within them the seeds of their own destruction, and that a silent mind can see exactly how to water those seeds until they grow into full defeat. Now pause for a moment and think about how this applies to the challenges you're facing right now in your own life. Because I guarantee you're dealing with opponents who are broadcasting their weaknesses through their behavior, their words, their emotional reactions. But you're missing these signals because your own mind is too noisy to receive them clearly. Your difficult boss, your unreasonable client, your manipulative family member, your dishonest competitor, they're all giving you constant information about how to neutralize their ability to harm you. But you can only see these opportunities when you develop the mental discipline to quiet your internal reactions and observe with perfect clarity. Yoshitsune taught that developing this mental discipline requires 3 specific practices that you can begin implementing immediately. And I want you to understand that these aren't just ancient techniques. They're practical tools that will give you a measurable advantage in any situation where clear thinking determines the outcome. The first practice is what he called conscious emptying, which involves deliberately creating periods of complete mental silence throughout your day, not as relaxation or stress relief, but as training for heightened awareness and faster processing speed. Start with just 5 minutes each morning where you sit in complete silence and actively empty your mind of all thoughts, not by fighting them, but by simply observing them without engagement until they naturally fade away. This isn't meditation in the traditional sense. This is combat training for your consciousness, preparing your mind to function at peak efficiency when pressure and complexity would normally create overwhelm. During this practice, you're not trying to achieve peace or spiritual enlightenment. You're building the mental muscle that allows you to think clearly when everyone else is losing their minds, and this ability becomes your secret weapon in every competitive situation you encounter. The second practice is environmental scanning, where you regularly put yourself in busy, chaotic environments and practice maintaining mental stillness, while absorbing maximum information about everything happening around you. Go to a crowded restaurant, a busy subway station, or any place with multiple conversations and competing stimuli. Then challenge yourself to simultaneously track as many different elements as possible, while keeping your internal dialogue completely quiet. This trains your brain to process multiple streams of information without the mental static that normally reduces your perceptual accuracy, and you'll be amazed at how much more you notice when you're not narrating everything to yourself in real time. Practice identifying people's emotional states by observing their body language. Practice listening to multiple conversations without getting caught up in any single one. practice noticing patterns in crowd behavior that reveal underlying tensions or opportunities. This skill directly translates into business situations where you need to read rooms full of people, understand group dynamics, and identify the real decision makers versus the people who just talk the loudest. The third and most advanced practice is predictive silence, where you learn to quiet your mind so completely that you can sense what's about to happen before it actually occurs, not through supernatural intuition, but through enhanced pattern recognition that becomes possible when mental noise isn't interfering with your subconscious processing power. This is the skill that allowed Yoshitsune to consistently anticipate his enemies' moves and respond to attacks before they were fully committed. And it's the same ability that will let you stay ahead of market trends, relationship dynamics, and competitive pressures in your own life. Start by practicing this in low-stakes situations like predicting when someone is about to speak in a group conversation, sensing when your pet is about to move to a different location, or anticipating changes in traffic patterns before they become obvious. As your mind becomes quieter, you'll notice that you can sense subtle energy shifts that precede major changes. And this early warning system becomes invaluable in business negotiations, romantic relationships, and any situation where timing determines success or failure. Now, I need to pause here and connect with those of you who are recognizing something profound in this teaching, because developing a silent mind isn't just about improving performance. It's about becoming the type of person who others instinctively respect and fear to challenge. If you've been following along and feeling that spark of recognition, that sense that this is exactly what you've been looking for without knowing how to name it, then I want you to comment below right now with the phrase, "I understand the power," because this community is specifically for people who are ready to move beyond surface-level self-improvement and develop real capabilities that create lasting advantages. The story of how Yoshitsune first applied his silent mind training in actual combat reveals exactly why this mental discipline is so devastatingly effective and how you can use these same principles to dominate in your chosen field. When he was 16, still technically in exile but beginning to develop his reputation as someone not to be underestimated, Yoshitsune encountered a group of samurai who decided to test the young monk's supposed fighting abilities. They expected either an easy victory over a soft religious student, or perhaps an interesting challenge from someone with basic training. But what they encountered was something completely outside their experience. A fighter whose mind was so quiet that he could see their intentions before they had fully formed them in their own consciousness. The first samurai attacked with a traditional overhead sword strike, a move that Yoshitsune had seen beginning in the man's subtle weight shift and muscle tension several seconds before the actual movement started. While the attacker was still committing to his technique, Yoshitsune was already 3 moves ahead, positioning himself not just to counter the current attack, but to set up his opponent for the finishing move that would end the encounter. The samurai found himself defeated by what seemed like supernatural prescience, but was actually just the practical application of a mind trained to process information without the interference of emotional noise or mental chatter. Each subsequent challenger fell to the same principle: not superior technique or physical strength, but superior mental discipline that allowed Yoshitsune to operate from a level of awareness that made their attacks seem slow and predictable. This is exactly what happens in your professional and personal life when you develop real mental discipline versus the superficial calmness that most people mistake for inner strength. In business meetings, while others are getting emotionally triggered by criticism or challenges to their ideas, your silent mind will be analyzing the real motivations behind the objections and formulating responses that address the underlying concerns, rather than just the surface arguments. In sales presentations, while your prospects are testing your knowledge or trying to negotiate better terms, you'll be reading their true level of interest and decision-making timeline, allowing you to apply exactly the right amount of pressure at exactly the right moment to close the deal. In romantic relationships, instead of getting caught up in the drama of what your partner is saying during an argument, you'll be understanding what they actually need emotionally and providing that need in a way that transforms conflict into deeper connection. The silent mind doesn't make you passive or withdrawn. It makes you more effective in every interaction because you're operating from clarity instead of reactivity, and people can sense the difference even when they can't articulate what they're noticing. The business applications of Yoshitsune's silent mind principles are particularly powerful in our current economy, where information overload and constant connectivity have made most people functionally ADD, creating massive opportunities for anyone who can maintain sustained focus and clear thinking. While your competitors are scattered across multiple priorities and reacting emotionally to every market fluctuation, you'll be operating from a place of strategic clarity that allows you to see opportunities they're missing and make decisions they're too distracted to consider. In sales, the silent mind lets you read your prospects with almost telepathic accuracy, understanding their real needs, fears, and decision-making patterns, while they're still trying to figure out what they actually want. You'll notice when they're ready to buy, before they realize it themselves. You'll sense their objections before they voice them, and you'll know exactly which benefits to emphasize and which concerns to address, to move them toward a positive decision. In leadership, it makes you the type of manager who people naturally trust, because they can sense you're not operating from ego or emotional reactivity, but from genuine wisdom and strategic thinking. Your employees will feel safer bringing you problems, because they know you won't shoot the messenger or make decisions based on personal frustration. And this psychological safety actually improves team performance, because people aren't wasting energy managing your emotions instead of focusing on solutions. In entrepreneurship, it gives you the mental discipline to stay focused on what actually matters, rather than getting seduced by every new shiny object or trend that promises quick success. You'll be able to distinguish between genuine opportunities and distractions, between feedback that should influence your strategy and criticism that reveals more about the critic than about your business. But perhaps most importantly, the silent mind transforms how you handle conflict and competition, because instead of getting emotionally triggered by challenges or opposition, you begin to see them as opportunities to demonstrate your superior mental discipline and strategic thinking. When someone attacks you verbally, instead of reacting defensively, your silent mind analyzes their emotional state and finds the response that will either de-escalate the situation or expose their weakness to everyone watching. When you face professional competition, instead of panicking about threats to your position, your quiet confidence allows you to assess the real situation and respond with moves that your competitors didn't see coming because they were too busy being reactive to think strategically. When you encounter setbacks or failures, instead of getting caught in emotional spirals that cloud your judgment, you maintain the clarity needed to extract lessons and adjust your approach without losing momentum. Let me tell you about the most famous example of Yoshitsune's silent mind in action, because this story illustrates the ultimate application of mental discipline and shows you exactly what becomes possible when you master these principles. The Battle of Dan-no-ura was supposed to be Yoshitsune's final defeat. His enemies had superior naval forces, better positioning, and the tactical advantage of fighting in familiar waters. But what they didn't understand was that they were facing someone whose mental training had prepared him for exactly this type of impossible situation. While his opponents were focused on conventional naval tactics, Yoshitsune's silent mind was processing a completely different level of information, reading wind patterns, current flows, enemy psychology, and timing opportunities that would be invisible to anyone operating from normal consciousness. In the middle of the battle, when everything seemed lost and his remaining ships were about to be overwhelmed, Yoshitsune made a decision that seemed like madness to everyone watching, but was actually the result of perfect mental clarity, seeing a possibility that no one else could perceive. He ordered his archers to target not the enemy soldiers, but the helmsman steering the opposing ships, a strategy that seemed inefficient until it became clear that he had identified the exact moment when disrupting their navigation would cause the enemy fleet to collide with each other in the changing currents. The battle that should have been his destruction became his greatest victory, not because of luck or superior resources, but because a silent mind can see solutions that are invisible to ordinary consciousness. And this same capacity for breakthrough thinking is available to you when you develop the mental discipline to quiet the noise that normally drowns out subtle insights and creative possibilities. This is the practical power of what Yoshitsune discovered in that mountain monastery, and it's available to anyone willing to put in the consistent effort required to train their mind for peak performance, rather than just hoping that things will work out somehow. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen faster than most people expect when you approach it with the same seriousness that a warrior brings to weapons training, understanding that your mind is the most important tool you'll ever develop, and that investing in its improvement pays dividends in every area of your life. Remember, Yoshitsune didn't become legendary because he was born with special gifts. He became extraordinary because he was forced into circumstances that taught him to develop abilities that most people never knew they possessed. And those same abilities are waiting within your own consciousness if you're willing to do the work required to access them. The silent mind isn't about becoming passive or withdrawn. It's about developing such profound inner control that you can respond to any situation from a place of strategic choice, rather than emotional reaction. And that difference in mental discipline is what separates those who shape their circumstances from those who are shaped by their circumstances. If everything we've discussed today resonates with you and you're ready to begin developing the type of mental discipline that made Yoshitsune unstoppable, then I need you to take action right now, because knowledge without application is just entertainment, and entertainment doesn't transform lives. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue learning practical wisdom that gives you real advantages in real situations. Hit the notification bell because the teachings we share here aren't available anywhere else in this format. And most importantly, comment below with your commitment to practicing mental silence by writing, "I choose clarity over chaos," because I want to know you're serious about developing the inner discipline that makes outer success inevitable. The path we've outlined today isn't easy, but it's the same path that transforms ordinary people into forces of nature that obstacles cannot stop and enemies cannot defeat. And that transformation is available to you starting right now if you have the courage to begin.